All right, Toby, what do you think we're going to be seeing in The Adventure Begins, the pilot movie?
Well, I assume we get to see maybe Buzz's origins as a, oh god, what are they called?
Space Rangers.
Space Ranger! We're gonna see his origins as a Space Ranger. We're gonna see a plucky young Buzz go through training or something before we get to see him at his full potential, and then, I don't know, I think probably something tragic would happen, and something fucked up happens, and that's his, hero origin story. Now he has a deep, dark past.
Beautiful.
And that's all I have right now.
Hi, welcome to Infinity and Rewind, first episode. I am your co-host, Victor Bell, and...
I am your other co-host. My name is Tobi Jam.
This is a Buzz Lightyear of Star Command rewatch, review, cultural contextualization, talk about show where I guess we should say our experience with this show. Toby?
Cool. So I have no experience with this show. The most I know is just the few bits that my friend Victor has info dumped to me, as well as just seeing the Toy Story movies when I was a kid. But other than that, I don't have a lot of experience with Star Command specifically, but I tend to be a very light dabbler in the sci-fi genre.
I have been obsessed with this show for almost 15 years. I was the correct age to catch reruns on Disney Channel when I was a little kid. The only episode I remember actually seeing on Disney Channel was it was Gravatina, which we'll get to. It's one of the earlier episodes in the series. I had the DVD version of the pilot movie, The Adventure Begins. I watched it a couple of times as a kid, and then one day I discovered the extras feature when I was 12, and I went, wow, the villains in the show sound interesting. And it was all downhill from there. Forum boards, watching the episodes in 13-piece chunks on YouTube, more forum boards, fan art, fanfic, meeting my future husband on a forum board, getting a tattoo of one of the characters on my leg, info dumping about it, and forcing people to watch as much of it as I can, all the time, because I'm insane. And now I've roped Toby into this. I win.
So, you went the whole absolute 9 yards of just hyperfixation on this thing.
It grabbed my brain, shook it, and has held me ever since. And stuff. But we'll get to that. For the first episode, we watched the pilot movie. Specifically, the DVD version. It was actually produced after the rest of the show in the movie version released for home video. Tim Allen does the voice of Buzz Lightyear. In the TV version that was split into 3 episodes, it was Patrick Warburton who voices Buzz for the rest of the series. Patrick Warburton being the only person who's in every single episode of the show, including the home-release pilot movie, because he also voices the LGMs. We sat down and watched it, but before we sat down and watched it, I asked Toby, I said, what do you think's going to happen in this?
I was I think I was pretty on par. I don't quite remember what he said, but I think that was pretty solid. Or at least I'm gonna say that every time we get back from these things.
You weren't that off. I believe you referenced a backstory, an origin story for Buzz.
Yeah.
And something bad happening in his past. And we didn't really get an origin story. As far as the universe is concerned, Buzz Lightyear has always been doing this exact thing. We don't care how he became a space ranger. We don't care why he became a space ranger. He just is. He's a rules-loving, jock. But he does get tragedy and so on and so forth.
He sure did. Especially with his, companion / boy toy, Dark Warp Star, which, by the way...
Warp Dark Matter.
I fucked up. Warp Dark Matter is a hell of a name to have for a character who you are, So within the first few minutes of the cartoon, there's a fantastic, piece of animation of Buzz and Warp fighting this, space Hydra thing.
Crater Viper Slag Monster Mutant.
Crater... Oh, okay, wait, hold up. Crater... Slider?
Crater Viper Slag Monster Mutant. So there's Crater Vipers, which I guess are vipers that live in craters.
Okay.
And this is a Slag Monster Mutant, which is a giant cyclopean mountain-sized monster with those things for fingers, I guess.
Yes. Which is genuinely a really fantastic piece of monster design. If there's one thing I'm definitely going to give this show just its flowers starting off is the monster designs are really, really cool. The robot designs are fantastic. And the background characters are so diverse and just kind of the way that the bodies are, different kind of species. It's not just this is a green guy.
They really take the whole this is animation, so we can make them look however we want thing. But they do throw in green guy, blue guy, etc. as well.
True.
But there's also Centaur alien.
True. And actually circling back to that blue guy that is just a blue dude, Warp, how... There was no way in hell this dude wasn't going to be some sort of bad guy. Like you were saying, Buzz is definitely the kind of character who is born to be just a rules-loving jock. If you name your kid Warp, Dark Matter, there's no way he's not going to be I'm going to stab somebody in the back.
And he
today.
says that himself in the thing. In the reveal towards the end when he's he's talking about it. He's like, my name's Warp Dark Matter. What did you expect? He's been doing this shit from day one, and I love that. I guess to back up a little bit, do you want to talk about the plot of the pilot? Do you want to talk about the cast?
What feels better to start off with?
I guess we should talk about the plot first.
Yes.
Okay, so summary.
Summary is... Oh boy. So the summary is, it is Buzz and Warp go out to find 3 missing little green men. And through finding these missing little green men, they are being held hostage by a gay queen from New York in a robot body.
Evil Emperor Zurg.
Yes. Actually, this brings up a note that I have, because I have a few questions about these little green men.
Yes.
So with these little green men, they are connected through mind and body practically. So I have a question about that very specifically. Okay. So if they're connected through mind and body, and so they can feel each other's pain, how are they not constantly in pain? Because even if somebody stubs their toe, does everybody feel that? Or is it just from a certain distance you do not feel that shit? Because I was actually kind of curious on that. Or if I'm just thinking too deeply on a child's cartoon show.
We're here to do that.
Awesome.
I don't know. They don't really go into it. It seems just from taking from what we see in the pilot, the ones that are 100 yards away or whatever, once they get in there, are being electrocuted directly.
Mm-hmm.
And the other ones are just ow. So it might be dulled. You got to be going through a certain amount of pain or be in a certain amount of danger, because they can also sense evil or whatever. So it might be more of a context thing of oh, we're in horrible, deep, deep danger. We got to go help them. And it might be thing because we see their hive mind thing.
Yeah.
Does have the capability of stretching across the universe, since the ones that are on whatever the crater planet is, and the ones on Star Command can feel whatever's going on home planet.
Right. Okay, that does make sense. So they find the little green men with other little green men being held hostage by Zerg, and there is a huge fight and a gigantic explosion where Warp is basically like pinned down by a bunch of rubble, and he tells Buzz to take the little green men and run. And so he does, the place explodes, and he thinks Warp died. He gives a very sad little speech, immediately cleans out his locker, and says, I'm not having another partner ever.
Because mine exploded.
Yeah, because mine fucking died. Classic, like, procedural cop show shit.
Mm-hmm.
Which I find that very interesting, that it does take a lot of, like, procedural cop show stuff from, like, the 80s. Same with taking a lot of, like, 80s cartoon stuff as well from that. From there, we are introduced to one of the other people from Star Command, a rookie by the name of Mira, which I think you were saying that her voice actress was also Shigo?
Yes.
From Kim Possible, and I can hear it now.
It's Nicole Sullivan. She is Shigo, and she also is known a lot right now for doing like Supergirl. She's been Supergirl for several years.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Good for her.
She does good work.
Oh, yeah. So, they show off a lot of, like, really cool things about this character, and specifically her species, of being able to do basically, like, phase through walls, and, like, phase through basically anything, which I thought was really cool. Going a little bit farther, she does, in fact, grab Buzz by the brain and kind of stop blood flowing through there for like a good hot second, which was nuts.
She fucks with people's brains a lot.
Oh.
She can reach directly into their skull. She can suck information out of their brain.
Oh.
She can... This is a mild spoiler for an episode we'll get to eventually, but she does stick her hand in somebody's head and threaten to just scramble their brain. And it's played completely straight.
Awesome. That's terrifying.
And with focus, she can phase through walls and stuff. Her whole species can.
Oh,
so.
Okay. Cool. She's a very cocky kind of character, which I really do like those kinds of characters. Girl power. We love... We support women's rights and wrongs here.
I love that she is canonically just as hot-headed and kind of stupid as Buzz is.
Exactly.
Like, we love a girl jock.
Mm-hmm. Which I feel like is a very cool subversion to, like, what you usually see in these kinds of, like, ensemble teams, where it's like, girl. She is definitely a little bit more than that, which I do appreciate.
I think with making her like a blue-skinned alien princess, they are trying to like subvert that a little bit. Like, she's kicking people's asses for fun.
Hell yeah. Later on, we are introduced to Booster, who is a larger red alien who is very much... I don't know how to describe him other than, like, kind of a bookish nerd who's also very into, like, the mechanics of, like, spaceships, and I don't know how... I'm kind of curious, because he does quote a lot of, like, excerpts from, like, the rules book for being a space ranger. I wonder how long they're going to continue that.
I think they kind of drop it once he's, like, a ranger. He knows the rules. Mm-hmm. He doesn't keep quoting the book directly, but he is, like... He's extremely knowledgeable about Star Command and how it works and stuff, while doubling as, like, the muscle and, like, the big down-home farm boy.
Oh, yeah.
Which, I don't know, I also now that I'm thinking about it, I also appreciate as a big subversion, because he, you know, normally you've got the big dumb muscle character, and the character that would be the big dumb muscle is also this, like, the smart one, which kind of reminds me of how they characterize Ray Stans in the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon. Another thing that rewrote my brain chemistry, where he's like a big kind of goofy, softy, but also he's the smart one, kind of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I'll definitely bring up later when we discuss it further, because I think there's a lot of very interesting subversions, which brings us to probably the last character in our ensemble, which is this little robot man made by the Little Green Men named XR. And at first he is just a funny little robot that's just kind of mimicking Buzz, and Buzz is so not into having a partner up until this little guy comes in and he's just like, oh, he's just gonna mimic me? That's fine. And brings them to try and fight Zurg, who has captured the big MacGuffin, the Unimind that all the Little Green Men flock to and connects them all, which has been, forgot to, and I think I skipped over this on accident, has been captured by Zurg. And so they're going back to try and take it from Zurg, and is another fantastic fight. This movie has a lot of very well choreographed fights, for sure.
Absolutely. With XR, he starts out as like, he's presented kind of as a learning AI. He's supposed to learn from Buzz, and he picks up on it very quickly. But when they go to the LGM homeworld, they get in a fight with Agent Z, this
That's right.
this new agent that Zurg has presented. He's got a cool robot gun arm. He's got a sick helmet and suit. And he knows all of Buzz's tricks and blasts XR to pieces. And the LGMs, now missing their hive mind, try to put him back together because that's his whole point, that he can be put back together so Buzz's partner cannot die, explode again. Or he can, but it's fine. He'll get better.
Don't worry about it.
They put him together. He came back wrong. He was revived wrong, and he was revived as a car salesman. Which,
I want to know where this particular trope comes from, because it's weird that in the late 90s we have this robot who is a weird used car salesman, and my immediate thought was like, wow, Spampton. Another used car salesman, computer program at this point. But I'm now curious where this like trope of computer used salesman tech thing comes from, because it's really funny that XR is exactly like that.
XR is impulsively disloyal, opportunistic, and horny. And those are some of his primary character traits for the rest of the series, but we do start seeing them here, including our first extremely blatant adult joke with his Victoria's Circuits magazine.
Yep, that's right. He does have like a Victoria's Circuits magazine.
Because they realize that he has been thoroughly fucked up by being brought back to life, and they just give him to Booster as a gift. They're like, you guys are here's your new janitorial tool. Have fun, fellas. And then they sneak onto the ship, and Buzz's ship specifically, and are just messing around because Booster's so excited about Space Ranger stuff. And XR is his tool. Robot Rights Watch #1.
Oh, boy.
Because that's going to be a recurring thing.
Oh.
And it gets interesting throughout the show.
I've only seen the tip of this iceberg kind of swim past in our past conversations of weird robot rights.
It also follows the rule that I think that had existed before that, but I think is really encapsulated by Samurai Jack, which is you can do any amount of violence or weirdness to a character as long as they're a robot. What was Samurai Jack having the like cutting, people apart and bathing in their blood, but it's oil and they're robots, even if you can't tell until he starts cutting them up.
Oh yeah.
That kind of stuff I think is just, it's a thing that I can pick up. Here's this horrible violence, as long as it's to a character who is a robot, move it right here, set it there, pin it. It's going to be there for a while. But yeah.
Which is part of like why I think like a lot of the choreographed like fights and stuff like that is like so fantastic. Is it's not just like, you know, Biff and Boom that you would see in like a lot of like older cartoons where they're just like it feels more like play fighting. It is very much like a fight that's going on, which is really cool. So continuing on, so Booster and XR are hanging out in Buzz ships while Buzz and Mira are trying to get on a like a stealth ship, and they're fighting. And this is where Mira grabbing Buzz by the brain kind of took me for a loop, because I did. She gave that man brain damage. To sneak onto this stealth ship to try and stop Zurg. And Buzz ends up telling the commander, and they end up stopping her on that ship, turning around to have another big kerfuffle fight. And then they end up teaming up with Booster and XR, who are not intentionally, but are definitely just hanging out in the back room of the ship, trying on Buzz's clothes.
Yeah, and XR immediately throws Booster under the bus, and then takes it back just as fast.
Which I think that definitely solidified XR as probably one of my favorite of the ensemble so far. I love that funny little man.
Zurg has the Unimind. He has built a big gun and put the Unimind in it, and he has turned it evil with his very touch. Like, corrupted it to its core, because he, in his own words, is a bad boy. Or maybe not that kind of bad boy. I don't know what he's going for. He's got something going on. He's got a lot of little phrases, because he's voiced by Wayne Knight. So you can get a real feel for him right there. Like, he says he's the evil emperor, and he says shit like Jim Crackin' Dandy and stuff. He refers to Agent Z as the perfect combination of man and machine with a naughty touch of lingonberry.
How is this not just... I have met this man. I have met this old gay man at a club before. And he lives with his mother.
And we love him for it. He does refer to his Nana Zurg, which implies to me that his first name is Evil Emperor. And that his family just is evil as a family career. He has corrupted it to its very core, put it in a big gun, and is now blasting planets with it in order to to use the fact that it is a hive mind engine to control everybody on that planet. And he takes over the planet of vegetarians, the Rhizomians, the planet of the Bathiosians, which are fish people, every other planet, presumably, and he hits Star Command. So everybody who was out on the ship, you know, Buzz, Mira, Booster, and XR, go back to Star Command only to find that everybody is Zurg. Like, he is speaking through their mouths and going to kill them.
Oh, yeah.
So they escape after the Star Command people under Zurg's control blow their ship to pieces, and they manage to survive by all cramming into that little one-person stealth ship.
Oh, yeah.
Of note, Zurg also mentions targeting the planet of widows and orphans, which I love exists in this universe.
What an interesting galaxy.
It's like the island of misfit toys, but for widows and orphans no one wants. You know, the widows can take care of the orphans. It's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's like a Big Brother program.
Already, there is an interesting universe that they are building, and I'm not quite sure. So they escape on this tiny little ship, and they make it over to the planet that Zurg is currently making. They're still trying to figure out how to make the big gun take over the entire universe. Which... my brain has stopped working. I'm so sorry.
It's Planet Z, Zurg's planet. He's working on blasting everybody. He thinks Buzz is dead. He is also, I believe, the pilot is where he refers to taking over the entire universe by controlling everyone in the universe's minds as 24/7 Zurgy Heaven. Buzz argues about the rules with everybody because Space Rangers, by rule, are supposed to have a partner, and he doesn't want a partner, and he tells them all to go home. They have an argument about that and who's allowed to have a nose ring and not. And then goes to fight Zurg himself. Gets his ass kicked.
Yep.
By Agency.
Which then is revealed to be Warp
Dark Matter.
Warp Dark Matter. Oh my god, I'm gonna get this man's name so fucked up. But it turns out to be Warp, which who'd have thunk other than, like, Buzz to be somebody else.
Buzz has a lot of faith in people. He goes through this whole thing of, like, okay, you have lost your memory. And Warp's like, no. You're an evil clone. No. Android. No. Oh, obviously, he's using the big mind control gun. He's been mind controlling you. No. In fact, Warp went to Zurg on his own because being evil is profitable and fun, and he's been secretly working for Zurg since they were in the academy together.
Absolutely insane. He looked, like, Buzz looked devastated.
They capture Buzz. They're going to blast him point blank with the gun and make him Zurg because that's truly the most evil thing they can do to him. Destroy his free will and make him evil. And he uses his last... he's like a radio log guy. You know how, like, he does his, like, reports, and he uses one of his reports at the end. He's like, it's my final report, signing off, to tell the others that he should have accepted their help and please come back. And they do. And it's a really big, cool fight scene with a lot of explosions.
Oh, yes. And once again, I really want to figure out at some point, like, who is the person that who storyboarded and choreographed some of these fights, because they are pretty fantastic. I'm not sure if it was the main team or if it's something that when they were working with the other animation team, they kind of got more ideas from them, but it is pretty fantastic. It ends with everybody kind of working together, working with their into sort of the people that I'm fairly certain that they're going to be throughout the show at this point, and they end up, which I think is the funniest thing. So Mira and Buzz are trying to get the Unimind back to being good, and they can't do it by a single touch. So Mira, using her phasing powers, phases Buzz into this giant rock.
She is like, well, I'm just gonna try this and hope it doesn't telefrag you. She just shoves him into the rock, and it becomes good again, because Buzz is the good guy. Mm-hmm. And also, for the record, Tad Stones directed the pilot movie. Also, the director of... he did a lot of Disney TV animation direction, but specifically he was the main director on 91 episodes of Darkwing Duck.
Oh, wow. Okay, that does explain a lot then. Darkwing Duck was also like a really well choreographed animation as well. Cool. Yeah, so through the power of shoving this dude into a rock, the rest of the universe is turned back to their normal selves. Zurg escapes in his giant ship and is real fucking mad about it. And they come back to Star Command, where Buzz then says that he will take on Mira, Booster, and XR as his partners, and they're a fun little team now.
Yay! One of my favorite things I noticed at the end, where I was really like, oh yeah, they definitely made this after they had produced most of the TV series, is that in the crowd shots of all the, like, people watching them get, like, you know, get their medals of honor at the end, very Star Wars style.
Oh, yes.
It has basically every single, like, senator that appears in the show is in that background shot.
Really?
So you can see all of their individual faces, and a lot of these people are, like, one episode appearances. So, and now they're there, which I think is really neat and definitely something they did after the fact, or else it would have just been photos. A lot of them have been designs that are way too detailed to just be crowd shot inserts, I think.
Oh.
I think before we get into discussing the pilot itself, storytelling, animation, more of the cast, whatever, I think we should take a quick break.
Oh yeah, sounds good.
Hi, I'm Alexander Mercury, and I am the editor and sort of director of this podcast. I am also Victor's husband, and I wanted to interject real quick during the break to add a little bit of additional context. I kind of insert myself as a third co-host in the middle of the second part, and also you will hear me saying to Victor and Toby that Buzz Lightyear of Star Command is Patrick Warburton's first voice acting role. To clarify, I mean it is his first major voice acting role. He did a few minor voices in other things beforehand, but this is the first one where he was the main character or a important character. I hope you enjoy the show, and see you after the break.
And we're back. All right, let's talk about this episode. I guess we should probably start with the main cast.
Yes.
So, as we said before, we've got Tim Allen doing Buzz in the home release of the pilot movie. What do you think of his performance here?
I'm gonna say he was actually very stiff. So, there was a lot of weird kind of deliveries that I'm not sure if it's because he didn't have, like, the direction for or the animation to kind of base how he was supposed to say a lot of things. But it was definitely a lot more stiff, which works better for him when he was in Toy Story because he's playing a toy. But in this, he's supposed to be like an actual, like, character in a cartoon than anything. You've mentioned to me quite a few times that there is 3 voice actors for Buzz, and he is number 3. And so just the difference between, like, what Patrick Warburton did with the pieces that you showed me of the pilot along with Tim Allen. Tim Allen is extremely stiff.
Yeah, I don't know really what he's doing in this because, I mean, he does fine as, like, actual, you know, in the Toy Story movies, Buzz Lightyear, because this came out, like, after Toy Story 2. In fact, in universe, it is a TV show in the universe of Toy Story that, you know, is meant to tie in with the Buzz Lightyear toy. Like, he does fine as that, but he's really kind of dropping the ball here. And say what you will about Lightyear, the movie, I will at some point, but, like, Chris Evans did a pretty all right job, and he's a better Buzz Lightyear than Tim Allen, at the very least, although no one beats Patrick Warburton, and we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, Patrick Warburton is a seasoned voice actor who's been doing it for years, so...
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. I have now been informed that this was Patrick Warburton's first voice acting role. I didn't know that.
Because his other first role was Kronk, and this came out just before Kronk.
Oh.
Okay.
Or not Kronk, Emperor's New Groove.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Okay.
Huh.
I want to thank my husband, who is our editor, who occasionally has extra things to add. He's our director, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tim Allen's doing a real weird performance. As far as the rest of the cast goes, we've already discussed Nicole Sullivan, who is Mira. We've got Larry Miller as XR, and he's been in a lot of things, but he's done bit parts in a lot of things, from what I can tell. Some of the more recent stuff, he does bit appearances on TV shows. I guess he was in a TV show from 2016 to 2017 called High School Cupid, a Cupid Inc. story. I don't know what that is, but he played Principal Perkles for 9 episodes. He was in a movie that I almost watched on an airplane once called The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then Bigfoot.
What?
Yeah. He was in a lot of things that I don't know anything about. I guess he was in one episode of Comedy Bang Bang. Here's a fun one. He was the chocolate vampire bat in Food Fight.
What?
Yeah. He was in one episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was in Alpha and Omega. He's not done a lot of stuff that people just, like, know really well, or he's not done a lot of those things. Although earlier in his career, he was in stuff like, he was in stuff like Suburban Commando and Necessary Roughness and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, he's definitely, like, knocking it out of the park being a used car salesman.
He's really good at it. I love XR's performance. And they put a little, like, buzz on his voice so he sounds more like a robot. Like, whatever effect they're doing, it's not too overwhelming. But it really is, he's going for it.
Oh, yes.
We've got Stephen First as Booster, most notable role being Veer in Babylon 5. He was in... Oh my god, there was that many episodes of Babylon 5? I don't know anything about this show. There was 110 episodes.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of...
I didn't know!
It's 5 seasons plus a bunch of movies.
I thought it was one of those sci-fi shows that got, like, one season and then everybody talks about how much they love it forever.
No. It is an epic.
That makes sense. Okay, he was Veer in Babylon 5, and he, as I've been told, fell victim to the Babylon 5 curse.
Which is an insane thing I've never heard about until Alexander brought it up.
It looks like he had done a little bit of voice acting before he was Booster, but not a lot. What do you think of this performance?
I think he does a pretty good job. There wasn't a lot to Booster that I could really say that, like, he really got to expand what he was doing, other than being, the very plucky, book-smart little country boy. But I think he did a quite fine job.
And of course, our main villain, Evil Emperor Zurg, voiced by Wayne Knight.
He was fucking eating it.
He's killing it. He is eating the scenery. Like, I know, me being a person who was born in 1998, I mostly associate Wayne Knight with being in Jurassic Park and Space Jam. But the more appropriate thing would be to say everybody knows Wayne Knight, Seinfeld.
Oh, yes.
And he's eating it. He's killing it. He's loving it. And he is clearly having a lot of fun. And that continues for the rest of the series. And I'm so happy for it.
Oh, awesome. I cannot wait to hear more. Because he is really, really, really good at doing just, like, the goofy cartoon villain.
I know he's done some other voice work. From my quick glance over the IMDb page, like, not a ton of, like, other big stuff, but he's also in a lot of things, and I'd have to roll through his IMDb page, and I will do that later. And we've got Adam Carolla as Commander Nebula, Diedrich Bader as Warp Dark Matter. I think they're both doing a very good job, especially Warp. I love Warp's voice performance. And then you get down to, like, very, minimal stuff, and then obviously there's cameos. The movie starts with the Toy Story characters, like, getting the tape for the pilot movie for Buzz Lightyear and watching it, so you get little bit, like, appearances from all the Toy Story characters. Woody, Buzz, Rex and Ham and all that.
Which is a very, very cute start.
Notably, not Mr. Potato Head, but that's the voice cast, and it doesn't really change throughout the series. We'll have some guests. XR does change voices at one point to Neil Flynn. We'll get to that when we get to it. But, yeah, I think everybody's, except for Tim Allen, is doing a pretty stellar performance.
Fuck Tim Allen, I guess.
But, I mean...
He's not doing a great job. That's fine.
He's not trying very hard, I don't think. Or something about the direction was really awkward. I don't know. And I guess that just leaves, like, your general feelings on the show itself. World building, animation, etc.
It's, just so far, going back to the animation, I do think a lot of the animation is fantastic. You can definitely tell it, like... kind of some of the heavy-handed, more, like, inspirations for it. Of course, Star Wars being probably one of the bigger sort of stylistic influences on it, along with things like, you can definitely tell, especially from, like, a lot of the particle effects for sort of lasers and light and stuff like that. Transformers, like, very early Transformers and He-Man, stuff like that, because a lot of the effects for those were a lot of things that, like, early animations like that in the 80s kind of did. And a lot of that actually kind of comes from, like, sort of the cheaper animation that you get over in the East. Very much like something akin to, like, toy animations. Because that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. Just because I know those particle effects. I have watched far too much Fist of the North Star to not point at that and go, like, I know that bitch.
Yep. The animation company that did this pilot was Jade Animations, who did a lot of work for Disney around this time. They worked on Tailspin, Lilo and Stitch the series, the Little Mermaid series. They did the Hercules animated series, Goof Troop,
oh wow,
Gargoyles, Darkwing Duck. Cyber Chase. They did 10 episodes of the show itself after this, and I bet you I can pick out which ones they did just from the stylization.
Mm-hmm.
They'd worked on Batman the Animated Series, American Dragon Jake Long, just like a lot of stuff. And they did some anime, but not any that I really know or recognize.
None that I recognize for sure.
Yeah, it looks like Apocalypse Zero, that they just did backgrounds for that. Future GPX Cyber Formula, The Legend of the Condor Heroes, stuff I've never heard of, but I will say the backgrounds are so killer. I stare at them all the time. I love them. They're so richly colored. I think they're really really cool, shapy paintings with a lot of neat shading, I think.
Oh yeah. The only really criticisms I have for some of those backgrounds is more of the deep spacer ones just feel a little flat. But once you get into the more terrestrial, actually on a planet one, you can definitely tell a lot of the architecture and things that was really kept in mind for what they kind of wanted to do for that sort of design thesis.
If I remember right, part of the reason for the deep space stuff being like that is because that was just from Pixar. They just did 3D animation for that.
Oh.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I can definitely say, the deep space looks really flat, and it kind of stays looking really flat. It's black background with stars.
It's space. There's not much you can do there.
Yeah, but when it gets to, planet shots, on-planet shots, detail shots, they're all really cool, and the sense of space is really, interesting. I think it looks really nice. It's got such a unique look to it.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting in the final battle and a lot of other stuff gets really, they use a lot of really strong shading and colors and stuff. There's a particular shot, during the final fight between Zurg and Buzz, where, Buzz is standing in front of the giant Z, and Zurg's, shadow just kind of fluidly comes up behind him. And then there's, this really bright lighting. It's a cool shot.
Oh, yeah.
And the colors are so saturated all the time in this show, and especially this pilot, but in a very pleasing, 80s arcade carpety kind of way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me pull up my notes just so I can give you some, thoughts in general that I was having.
Absolutely, because this is the general thoughts section.
Yes, general thoughts. Well, like I was saying, the first, beginning little animation where they actually got Pixar to do something for the animation was very, very cute. So I think this starting off is a very, very fun way to kind of start off a series, even if it is as, very simplistic and easy as, here is a cartoon that is meant to sell kids' toys. You can definitely tell they put a way more than you would really think they would into this little cartoon series. Especially
for something that was, never, a theater release. I think the fun thing of it being an in-universe, Buzz Lightyear toy tie-in show is that it literally is meant to sell toys within universe. They didn't sell that many in real life. I don't think they ever made a toy of Mira, did they?
Technically, they did, but only through McDonald's.
Yeah, there's not a lot of toys out there for this show. It's hard to get your hands on them. We've got a few, but it's definitely got that every character has such a cool, unique design and a gimmick. Commander Nebula has a neat gimmick with his design later on that comes up. Everybody's got stuff going on. Zurg's got his big the multi-cannon. Obviously that was a thing from Toy Story 2, but there's the Hornets. They're very iconic designs.
Oh yes,
that would translate pretty great into toys.
Oh yeah, and I think that's really kind of my perspective, being somebody that's just kind of stepping into this. How are you feeling coming back to it?
I always like watching the pilot. There's a lot of things from my childhood that I'll go back to and kind of cringe at. Not even necessarily because the quality is low, just because it's, I'm not the target audience and they don't want me to be the target audience, so I can't enjoy it the way I would, but I think it's pretty tightly written. I think it's beautiful to look at. I think the character writing is really snappy and fun. You mentioned you wanted to talk a little more about subversions that they do throughout it. Coming back to it, it's good. I watch it every couple of years, if not once a year, not as a celebration or anything. I'm just I'm gonna put it on because it's easy to put on.
Speaking of subversions, the whole subversion of it being a cartoon for kids featuring the main cast of all adults.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things about the show is the main cast is entirely adults. And that is never a thing in a Disney show that I recall before or since. There are shows where the main cast is like young adults or teenagers or like however old Aladdin and like Hercules are supposed to be. I guess Timon and Pumbaa are both adults, but
they're also little animal creatures.
Yeah, and that was like a weird sketch show or whatever was going on there.
Yeah.
But like it's the only Disney show that I can think of that's like a pretty standard adventure, style where all the characters are adults and presented as adults. Mm-hmm. They're fully independent. None of you meet a couple of characters' parents later, but they're clearly like living independently. Booster is a young adult with a job. XR's 2 days old, but he's got the personality of a 37-year-old car salesman. He's got a little bit of John Lasseter in him, and I stand by that. Especially like later. There's a particular episode where I'm looking at you, John Lasseter, a little bit. Mira is an adult who is in, cop school, space cop school. Buzz is like 35. He's been doing this job for a while already.
He's a 40-year-old man.
He's a 40-year-old man.
Who has been cucked.
Hello?
We'll get to that.
What?
We'll get to that episode. That's canon.
Hello? You can't just drop this on me.
We're leaving little crumbs for later.
This isn't a crumb. This is a rock that has been thrown at my head.
We'll get to it.
We have to keep this in the episode now.
We'll get this way later. But yeah, Buzz has been canonically cucked. Okay. Anyway.
I think I'm just gonna join the podcast now.
That's fair.
Officially.
Yeah. Welcome, Alexander.
Hello.
He's the person I met on the forum board years ago. And now we're married.
Woo.
There's a lot going forward, and it continually addresses the fact that these characters are adults and should be treated as such, which means the occasion that there is a child who joins the cast, they never join the cast for more than an episode. Mm-hmm. They are either treated as an interesting one-off character in the case where it happens there's one child character who returns for 2 other episodes.
Oh.
And she's adorable. You're gonna love her.
Great.
They never become regular cast members. They're never regularly referenced, and they are treated either as children or as an annoyance in one case. And I just think that's really interesting, because it also leads to a lot of the weird adult jokes that just kind of get slipped into the show that I think are so funny. There's one in particular I'll want to discuss when we get to it, because I have another Disney show to reference that kind of shows how their attitude changed and stuff going forward throughout the years. But you wanted to talk about subversions.
Yes. So I was kind of really looking at it as so in the 80s it was very common for there to be just cartoons that were meant to sell kids action figures and stuff like that. So coming into this, I was really kind of looking at it from kind of that perspective of this is going to be a sort of a cheeseoid 80s cartoon.
Cheap animation, just introducing a lot of characters that with cool design powers, just so that you want the toy of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wasn't really expecting much in terms of character and stuff like that, because I was really expecting it to be here's funny robot, here's big man, here's Buzz Lightyear, and here's girl. And it was just a little bit more than that, which I found just very pleasantly surprising. So it was a kind of a mix between it's going to be an 80s cartoon, or it's going to be a subversion, just being more of a get a load of this cam of weren't 80s cartoons fucked. But I'm glad it kind of just took a little bit more of a genuine route to that.
I really like that it is pretty genuine. It does it knows when to poke fun at itself a little bit, with Warp's character. Mm-hmm. I like the characterization, because I genuinely, a lot of people have a very strong fondness for certain characters, but everybody kind of has a different favorite. Mm. I've got friends that I've known for years, and their favorites are this person's favorite is Warp, this person's favorite is Booster, this person's favorite is Zurg, and, it goes about, there are some people who really like Mira.
Oh boy.
But, we don't talk about those ones.
We're not going to talk about those ones. Everybody's got a favorite. They're like Pokemon, because they're well characterized, I think, and well designed.
A lot of people like the one that you have tattooed on your leg. A lot of people like XR. My favorite is a one-off character who shows up at the very beginning of an episode and never again.
Because they're fun.
Yeah, like, even all the characters who only show up as a one-off, a lot of them still have developed personalities, even for the short amount of time that they're on screen.
I think you're really gonna love Madam President when she shows up.
I'm excited, because right now I can tell you my favorites right now, in the little Toby square, this is fun, is I do like XR, and I do like Zurg.
They're really great. There's a lot of, like, things I think you're gonna go for later in the series. I think you're gonna like Madam President. I think you're going to at least get a kick out of the kind of cowboy episode. There's
a little treat for me.
A little treat. The cowboy episode that has what's his name?
The con guy.
Yeah,
Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah, Ricardo Montalban in it.
Fantastic name.
Yeah, he's the guy who plays Khan in Star Trek. TOS.
Yeah.
Original series, yeah.
Yeah, or Grandpa from Spy Kids.
Oh, wait, that's also the... What?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Goddamn, I don't know anything.
Yeah, he also, like, gets to play a character in one of the episodes of Blask.
Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff, and one thing that's going to be really fun is characters have amazing names in this show. Like, just to give you a preview, 2 of the best names in this entire show, and they'll come up, are Rhett Whistle Swack. You're gonna like him, he's fun.
Great.
And Fop Doppler.
No, I can't say that. I can't say that. I'm sorry.
We're not a kid-friendly show, but we'll try and keep it relatively clean.
Can we do an outtake, though? I do want to know what you were going to say.
Okay. Give us your outtake.
Dandy.
Okay, we have to remember to cut this out. Anyway.
I might keep it in, but just, like, put a loud beep over that part.
We're all gay. Okay. I appreciate you joining us for this. We're definitely going to, like, knock out, like, a couple of episodes every so often. Obviously, not having to give context for the show or having to review an hour-long pilot or get acquainted with all the characters, the episodes probably won't be as long as this one going forward. Thank you so much for doing this. It's such a show. Like, it's not the best show, but it's such a show, and Disney hates it. Disney has actively tried to erase the existence of this television show. They don't put it on Disney+. There's record of John Lasseter fucking hating this show.
Oh my god.
There was a Toy Story comic series that featured, as one of the new toys in the room, a Booster figure. And as soon as John Lasseter found out that they were doing that, he made them cancel the entire comic.
Oh my god.
Because he hates that show so much. Why? My theory is because, like, he knows it's better than Canon Buzz.
It was, I don't know what the ratings were. I'll have to look into it generally, but I think it did okay. It didn't run for terribly long. It has 2 seasons, 74 episodes?
No, well, less than that, for sure.
Let me
like 62.
Let me double check.
Oh, wow. I'm actually surprised, because when you said, like, there was 2 seasons, I was like, oh, like 24 episodes each, like 50-ish episodes.
Oh, no. See, like I said before, the only reason it's separated into 2 seasons is because one of the seasons aired on a different channel completely.
Yeah.
Which means that one had a lot less episodes in it because it only aired on Saturdays.
Right.
You're right. It is 62 episodes. I think there was an old rule that a show had to reach 75 episodes to reach syndication, but that might have changed by then.
I do know that, like, back when Kim Possible was airing, there was a huge fuss about it, like, ending at episode 64 because, like, that was the amount of episodes that Disney would allow for their cartoons at the time. So that's probably part of the reason why.
Yeah, something about that. John Lasseter hated the show. They don't put it on Disney+. A lot of it's on YouTube. A lot of it's been taken down from YouTube. Like, it pops back up, it goes away. You know, like a lot of things. But
yeah.
Disney does not care about this show. They removed references to it from the Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger spin rides.
They purposely changed the alphabet pins so that XR wouldn't get their only X character that they had to use as X pin.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like 3 different XR pins.
There's like 4 at least. And the ones that they made after that just started using like a generic Mickey Mouse and Friends designs, regardless of whether or not their names actually started with a letter or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not a show that gets talked about a lot. I've seen it get picked up a little more for discussion recently. I've seen like a few YouTube videos about it. I've seen the Defunct Land one, I guess, is the biggest one, and it's not terribly well representative of the show. And I'm not going to criticize it that deeply.
Yeah,
like,
it's clear that like he was just working off like what references he can pull up or research that he could pull up, given that like he's not like a hyper fan of the show.
Yeah, he doesn't know its heart and soul like we do.
Very funny though that he did like totally never mention a villain who showed up like at least 5 episodes, right?
Yeah, he was in 5 episodes main and had cameos in 3 others.
And just never mentioned that villain at all, despite being one of the most important ones.
You know, it's definitely like when you have a show that a huge person in the animation industry fucking hates and wants destroyed, it's kind of hard to find that kind of information.
Exactly. Like, he probably doesn't have access to like all the episodes, burned onto bootleg DVDs like we do.
Yeah.
We have 2 sets of bootleg DVDs.
We mean very legally obtained DVDs.
I mean, it was legal to like record stuff on video as long as you weren't selling it to other people. Mine wasn't like sold to me; it was given to me as a gift.
There we go.
Mine was sold on eBay, but I didn't know it was unofficial at the time because I was 12 and I had my grandma buy it for me.
So we are. Our hands are.
Our hands
clean
are
from
clean.
this.
We bought legal merch.
And if they put it on DVD officially, then we would buy that.
Because we'd love to have ones that don't have the commercial bumpers on them for the Little Mermaid TV show or whatever. Or ones that are deep fried, like that one. Oh, we're going to have to get to that one, and it's deep fried.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I'm going to have to like double check like my versions on the drive and see if any of them are like slightly better than the ones on the disc.
Yeah, because most of the ones I have are fine, but there's one that's...
Yeah.
But we'll get to that when we get to it. Do you have any final thoughts, Toby?
I thought it was very neat, and I'm very excited to see what other sort of little tidbits I can learn more about this world. Thank you both for dragging me by my ankles to, like, watch this series with y'all.
Thank you so much for participating in our wild obsession. Just being very patient with me, but like I hope you are enjoying this, and I hope you continue to enjoy it because it just gets wilder from here.
I'm stoked.
Like you're gonna start seeing how the stuff that we pre-recorded Toby saying like what he thinks some of the episodes are going to be about. You're gonna see how the stuff you came up with is not nearly as wild as some of the stuff that happens in the episodes.
Awesome.
Truly. It's some real, bonkers cartoon stuff.
And not the Bobcat either.
Yeah. So where can people, like, find you? What kind of stuff you do? Plug yourself.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you're going to be a consistent host on the show, but, like, plug yourself.
Yeah. Well, you can always find me on Tumblr at parsleyrosemarybotch.tumblr.com. You can also find me on Artfight at Tobi Jam.
It is the time of year for that.
Assuming we get this up in time.
Yeah. I have been Victor Bell. You can find me literally everywhere under Python Melon. Or if you want to go to Instagram, pythonmelon_art. That's Tumblr, that's Blue Sky, that's my personal website, that's Instagram, that's Artfight. I got it on lockdown. And Alexander?
And, don't find me.
That's fair.
You're going to be listening to this, presumably on our Mercury Melon a YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah.
So check out more of the videos that we have on there, because we have a variety of little bits.
And they're very fun. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for listening. Thank you to my co-hosts.
I have a question. You know how, like, so many podcasts end with, like, a specific line? Would it be inappropriate to use a scab as ours?
And remember,
all space cops are bastards. Thank y'all, and see you around.
Bye.